I'm Nick Schultz, research fellow here at the uni. I'll be talking about ecological restoration and our invasive species research as well. In a sense, this is just another arm of our ecological expertise, and Grant's given you a really good introduction to that. And whilst I'll be speaking to our restoration efforts and our invasive species research, certainly it represents quite a few of us as well. So Florey in particular has a lot of expertise in invasive species and ecological restoration, and so do quite a few of us in the group. So, but there is a little bit of a different philosophy to some of the ways we do research into restoration and invasive species, so it kind of sits nicely as its own little talk here as well. So I'll be giving you a few examples just to sort of demonstrate the sort of thing that we can do. We've done a lot of work with the Ginkgo and Snapper mines in about a couple of hours north of Mildura, crystal mining up there. So we've actually done a lot of vegetation and fauna surveys over 8 years in a restored mine and the overburdens and mine paths, and plus monitoring in the associated remnants. Now this has been a long-standing collaboration with the mine, and I'll show you a few things that we've been able to do there, and I think it kind of nicely encapsulates the kind of things we can do. So we have given them lots of specialist recommendations for threatened and endangered species habitat that they're restoring, monitoring vertebrate and invertebrate communities, and monitoring how they develop and over time, so how succession works for those species. So whilst it's been important information for the mine itself, it's also been a really good opportunity to study these things and provide advice for the rest of the world as well who might be doing restoration in the arid zone. In particular, we've been working with mines in WA to sort of compare our results, because they're sort of similar, different group of species, different vegetation, but there's lots in common that we can compare and learn from. So the point I want to make here is that we want to learn from our restoration practices, okay? So we've worked pretty hard with Crystal to try and incorporate rigorous experiments into their restoration practice, okay? So they're doing it anyway, but we want to learn as much as we can while they're doing it. And that's good for them because they can get better at it over time. It's also good for us and good for everybody else. So we can actually get some really good information out of when they're actually doing it. They're doing the work anyway, so I'll talk more about this. I'll give you a couple of examples. So really simple things like this, okay? They're going to plant some tube stocks, okay? They're going to do it anyway, but we want to say, okay, how about you have some different treatments in there, try out these water saving crystals, try out using deeper topsoil than you usually do, try out drip irrigation, right? We'll focus on 4 of your main species, okay? Some really simple experiments like this, but unless you get in at the start and set these up, then you can't really learn from it, okay? You might go out, put a bunch of tube stocks, half of them die, and you think, oh, I think I know why some of them died, and then you try it again and it fails again. But we want to learn from these processes, so we try and incorporate these rigorous experiments. We can get results, okay? Now, I'm not here to tell you, present all the experiments, but for example, we can tell you the water crystals didn't work, deep topsoil only had a really minor positive influence on tree health, and irrigated treatments were by far the most successful, okay? But by monitoring them in these ways, we get results, we can provide them a report, and then from then on, they can go on and do it a better way. That's too much. We're doing some direct seeding trials where we're using this Burford tree seeder to, as another way. Okay, so historically their main way of doing restoration has been just to broadcast seeds on prepared ground. Works pretty well for some of the shrubs, but not very well for many of the tree species. So we're looking at different ways of getting trees into the ground. And preferably ways that are cheaper than putting in tube stocks and watering them. So we're trying these direct seeding trials. We've set up monitoring regimes, and we're monitoring those regularly, and we're reporting back to them, and we're reporting back not just on how well it's gone, but what was the influence of weeds How important is it to spray weeds? Which species did well? Which seeds did well? What sort of bang for your buck are you getting for different seed species, and so which one should you continue on with in the future? We're looking at the re-establishment of biocrust, which is an important component of the system. So this is another thing where we've suggested to them, how about we do an experiment, and they say, yep, go for it, and we get it done. So here we're trying the use of using psyllium husk to hold the soil crust together, and we're inoculating the ground with a slurry made out of biocrust collected from the remnant system. Okay, so that's another one where we've done the experiment, we found out some results, we're giving them a report on that, and from that point on, they know what their sort of best bet is if they're going to go forward with that. So, what did Crystal get out of? What does the mine get out of? Working with us. Okay, they increase their bang for their buck. So the money they spend on seed and tube stock can be much more focused on the species that they know are going to work. So we get this improved species selection. We give them lots of other management recommendations. So what were the impacts of weeds, browsing, climatic variation, and all these sorts of things. And so we're improving their processes. Okay. And also this idea about community assembly. Okay. So we're giving them advice on how to stage their restoration to improve their processes as well. So there's definitely value in the research for them. We will be publishing our results, sharing our results. So in that sense, I suppose it makes the mine a better member of the community as well. So this is the idea. We want to keep learning from restoration efforts, okay? So we want ecologists and practitioners to develop really good relationships so that we can learn from these things. Sorry. And we want to get in at the front end, okay? So if you sort of plan this before you start doing the restoration, you can get really nice baseline data, good sound experimental design, and we can, it increases our ability to learn from these efforts. I want to speak briefly about our grassland research. It's going to feed into, we're interested in grassland and restoration as well, but one of our big questions is, how essential is disturbance in Victorian grassy ecosystems? Sort of crossing back into Grant's talk here about our looking at disturbance. We know that we like to disturb grasslands to keep sort of intertussock spaces open, provide opportunities for a diverse grassland flora. So we know from previous studies that low productivity grasslands don't necessarily need as much disturbance. Okay, so up here in the northern plains in particular, we're not really sure how much disturbance is necessary to maintain diversity in these systems. So that's something we're definitely interested in. So we've got ongoing projects there, collaborations with La Trobe, Feed Uni, Parks Victoria, Trust for Nature. So we know disturbance is a key management tool, but there's lots of knowledge gaps in how flora and fauna respond to these disturbances. So we've got students and ongoing collaborations with these organisations looking at grassland research. So I just sort of want to give that a plug. It's something we're really interested in. We're also interested in restoring native grasslands. So we've got a PhD student, Shakir Bahadin, working with on a project that's supported by Melbourne Metropolitan Waste. So there's all this sort of waste left from our green waste, metropolitan green waste collections, and they're actually looking for a way that might actually be able to help us manage. It might have a use for restoring grasslands. We're actually using it to cook the seed bank. Okay, so we're taking these ex-cropping paddocks and they're creating a huge amount of heat on there, and we're cooking all those weeds out of there, hoping that would provide a nicer starting point for us to broadcast native seeds. And so that's a project that Shakir is looking at, and that's a project with Florrie and I. Moving on to weed ecology. So we're interested in all sorts of weed biology, seed ecology, because seeds are obviously a massive component of when you've got a weed problem. Well, we're interested in the soil seed bank and its management, ecology and management of invasive and native weed species, developing guidelines for weed management, and examining the biology, seed ecology and physiology of newly emerging weeds. So this is mostly Florey's work, so he's got quite a few students sort of going through the lab and his own work as well. So we'll have a look at that. We've got a couple of examples here. We had a recently completed PhD student on the ecology and management of the invasive plant Galenia, which I'm sure some people here are familiar with carpetweed and the terrors it causes in different vegetation around here. We've got a student looking at the sort of distribution and determinants of sallow wattle invasion. So this is Acacia longifolia. So our PhD student Sam Barron, again that's with Florey and I, in collaboration with Parks Victoria, in particular looking at Grampians National Park and the issues they have there with sallow wattle. So Sam is doing some modelling, looking at the physiology of the species and the fitness of the plant in different parts of the landscape. And she's doing some really great work. This is looking at a project looking at aquatic weeds in Lake Wendouree. So this is again with Florey and Dr. Namisha Fernando, who's a postdoc we have here. They've got a project with the City of Ballarat looking at weeds in Lake Wendouree. So I kind of just wanted to finish off here, sort of talk about our philosophy of research into restoration in invasive species. So yes, a lot of people like to learn by doing, and that's why doing trials and adaptive management, and we really like that. We think that's a great way to go, particularly when it comes to restoration. Okay, so ecological restoration is still a relatively emerging field in the world. And yes, certainly one of the best ways to sort of start doing this is to do it, okay? Go out and do some and learn by doing, so trial things, adaptive management. But we sort of want to make that point that we can really increase how much we learn when we sort of have trials and learn by doing by incorporating rigorous experimental design, having really good baseline data, and having consistent comparable data that we collect across temporal scales. So that's where we'd sort of like to come in and help out as much as possible. Grant talked about this in some regards, so what can we do? We can do research as consultants where we can contribute to experimental design, data collection, data analysis, reporting, all right? But we can also contribute to your design and your research, okay? It might be your project and you only just want to bring us in for a little bit of it, that's fine by us. And as we've said, we've got lots of students, okay? So we've got third-year students doing research projects, and they can tackle really small projects, okay? So if you've got an idea and you sort of don't really know whether it holds water or not, so we can get a third-year student on it, and they can have a little crack at it, do a pilot study or something like that. We've got honours students, and then PhD student is obviously a bit of a bigger project, but PhD students are pretty awesome because they work their arse off for 3 years, and we don't pay them very much, and they can get a lot done, okay? So, so PhD projects can be really good. I suppose the one point I wanted to make here is that you don't actually need to know what you want before you come and talk to us. You can just come and start a conversation if you like. It doesn't matter. We can sort of talk about what the problem is and figure out, at which level is best suited to you here. So, yeah. Conversation free, pick up the phone, come and talk to us. That's all I really wanted to say. Thank you.